the West Puget Community Connection Podcast. This is where we learn about the people of our community. We learn what they do, and more importantly, why they do it. Subscribe by email at westpugetcommunityconnection.com. We look forward to learning more about you. The West Puget Community Connection Podcast is brought to you in part by mywebdesignservices.com. Quick, easy, affordable websites that look amazing across all devices. For a quote or to get started today, visit mywebdesignservices.com. Welcome to the West Puget Community Connection Podcast, where we learn about the people in our community, what they do, and more importantly, why they do it. Our mission is to stimulate community engagement by creating a sense of community and rapport. We do that through interviews and storytelling with locals. You can listen to the podcast for free with unlimited streaming on our homepage at westpugetcommunityconnection.com. Contact us if you're interested in advertising or being featured on the show. And now, without further ado, we bring you this episode of the West Puget Community Connection Podcast.
Today we welcome Danny Milholland. Danny Milholland is a lifelong resident of Port Townsend. He's the owner and creator of Thunderbull Productions. He's the publisher of Strait Up Magazine. And he's a manager and booking agent of the Performing Arts Group NANDA, and a founding member and producer of 5 annual traditions on the North Olympic Peninsula. He has dedicated his career to building community through celebration. And so now we welcome Danny. Hi, Danny. Are you there?
Hey, yeah. Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Sweet, man. Yeah, this will be fun. So, yeah, thanks so much for agreeing to come on the podcast and share
totally.
Things about.
Happy to be here.
Yeah, so I'm excited to learning more about you.
Yeah.
So you had mentioned, you had actually gone over a bit of your story on our first phone call. Can we kind of review a bit of your story?
Sure, yeah. Where do you want to start?
Let's start with you growing up in Port Townsend, and I understand you graduated the Port Townsend High School in 2003. What was that?
Yes, I did. I was born in Port Townsend in 1985, and grew up here. I loved Port Townsend. I always enjoyed growing up here pretty much. Graduated high school in 2003, had basically no idea what I was going to do, but didn't really care at that point. I was just ready for adventure and spent several years traveling. I spent some time in Central America and a little bit of time in Asia. And at some point I was back home in Port Townsend, really at that point trying to figure out what I was going to do with my life. And through a series of adventures, ended up getting invited to jump on board as a manager and booking agent for NANDA, which is made up of a group of childhood friends, and they had this performing arts troupe that they'd started, and we're starting to get gigs and wanting to kind of make a career out of it. And so I was invited on board to help them and be part of that process. And so we essentially moved to Portland, Oregon, and we spent about 5 years, more or less, just touring on the road, producing shows ourselves. We produced a big run of shows in Seattle. We produced shows in Portland and Los Angeles and in a variety of other cities and smaller towns throughout the Pacific Northwest. Also had a chance to tour all over the country and a little bit in Canada, and did one Mexico tour. And throughout that process, I was coming back to Port Townsend. I kind of always thought I wanted to return to Port Townsend. And in 2009, while I was still heavily involved in NANDA, a group of us, including members of NANDA, started an event in Port Townsend called Boom Fest, which was basically a massive community potluck. Where we invited like all our friends and family and everyone we knew and everybody we ran into in the streets, and just kind of word of mouth promoted this massive community potluck. And that event grew from just this huge party, which was totally loved by the community, and it grew into an annual tradition that was a 3-day weekend festival that was drawing people from throughout the Northwest, and it just kind of grew too big for having a lack of structure, which we kind of, on principle, we in some ways didn't want structure. We didn't want money to exchange hands. It was all about the gift economy, and it kind of, unfortunately, in that case, it didn't quite work to do it that way without structure. So that, in 2012, we did our final year of Boomfest, and the next year I launched a company, Thunderbull Productions, to kind of continue on in that tradition of just bringing community celebrations to life. And the first year of Thunderbull Productions, a number of the Boomfest crew and myself launched the Cake Picnic, which is kind of in the same vein as Boomfest, but much more kind of distilled down to a single couple hours where we serve free cake and have a massive dance party in Port Townsend.
That sounds fun.
It's very fun, and it happens at the climax of the Rhododendron Festival Grand Parade. So already there's visiting royalty, visiting marching bands, all the car shows and the Kiwanis clubs, and everybody's out on parade. And at the end of the parade, we have this massive party.
Where will we find you? Do you do it in the same spot every year?
Well, it usually it's always taken place down at Pope Marine Park. The little plaza next to the Cotton Building. We
That's
also have
isn't that next to the ice cream shop?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, It's just around the corner from the ice cream shop. There's various ideas and dreams in the works about possibly growing that tradition into Memorial Field, where perhaps many of the parade entries is also kind of just parade right on into the field and have it take place there, but we'll see. We're still brainstorming about this year's picnic.
Cool.
So that was kind of the launch of Thunderbull Productions, and then from there I got involved in a lot of different local traditions and was invited to help create and help produce, a number of different events, including the All-County Picnic, the Port Townsend Orca Festival, the Old School 4th of July, and a number of others. And each of these events is collaborative and kind of collectively owned by a number of different partner organizations. And, so that's kind of the work of Thunderbull, which is kind of my main focus and primary, source of livelihood at this point.
Okay. Well, that sounds fun. Where can we learn more about Thunderbull Productions? Do you have like a website where people can see the events that you're putting on?
Yeah, my website is thunderbullproductions.com.
Okay.
And then a number of the events have their own websites that are linked to that, like the cakepicnic.com, allcountypicnic.com.
Okay, I was going to ask you if there was the name of the other event you might want to turn us on to.
Yeah, there's websites that are connected with the Thunderbull website, so you can access those websites through Thunderbull or access Thunderbull through those sites.
Okay, so just go to Thunderbull, and then we'll see the list of different events that you're putting on there?
Yes, It's all there. Thunderbullproduction.com. Yeah.
Okay, so moving on from there, what was next in store for you?
Well, last year, a couple of my collaborators, Justine Gonzalez-Berg and Chen Polina, and I launched Strait Up Magazine as a kind of a platform to tell stories in a time of transition. We're sort of seeing these times we're in as transition times. And essentially it's an arts and culture magazine for the North Olympic Peninsula. I've seen the magazine.
I like it. Yeah, I've seen it. I've had a copy of it. I enjoyed it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a fun project, and we're really excited. This year, we're actually launching Strait Up Magazine as kind of its own business entity. So it's kind of it was originally launched by Thunderbull Productions, but now it's becoming its own business.
Very cool.
So that's really exciting for us.
And how can we help with Strait Up Magazine? What are you needing to make this thing a success?
Well, we are seeking subscriptions. That's kind of the best way that people can jump on board. We've given the option of just for $10 a year you can subscribe to the magazine. For $20 you can be a supporter. For $50 you can help sustain the project. And for $100 a year you can be a producer of the magazine and actually have your name printed in both of our 2019 editions.
Oh, neat.
So we are seeking some community support to really get this thing off the ground.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's magazines from 2018 available at Aldrich's, the Food Co-op, and a few different coffee shops in town. You can go by and pick one up. They're just $2 for the 2018 edition. Or you can reach out to me personally and jump on board. We'll be doing social media and email campaign launching our subscriptions for 2019 sometime in the next month or so. So we're also going to be sending a big email blast out seeking artists, like graphic artists, for this upcoming edition.
Oh, okay.
We're featuring a variety of local artists. The theme of the spring-summer edition is emergence. So we're looking for like new growth, kind of rebirth, transformation, kind of themes, spring, summer, anything that's like new, fresh. That's the kind of theme of art we're seeking.
Yep, that makes sense.
Otherwise, I think we are seeking we're kind of targeting various locals for additional stories and content. So we're not currently kind of doing a big campaign around getting new stories because we have a pretty good spread of writers. But that is something, if someone out there hears the podcast and is like, oh my God, I have such a great idea for a story. I've seen the magazine. I'd love to be included. Absolutely reach out, and it's entirely possible we'll have a spot for you.
So why don't we go ahead and drop the website, your domain for Strait Up Magazine too, so people can contact you.
So we actually we haven't launched a website for Strait Up yet.
How would
so if you want, at this point, just contact me through thunderbullproductions.com or info@thunderbullproductions.com.
Okay.
We will be launching a Strait Up Magazine website. It's either going to be straightUp.net or it's going to be straightupmagazine.com, yet to be determined.
So for now we head over to thunderbullproductions.com and contact you through the website, or info@thunderbullproductions.com.
Correct, yes. Yeah.
Cool. So now people can get connected with Strait Up Magazine and make contributions. Sweet.
Totally. We'll also launch a social media, Facebook page and stuff, but we've just, juggling
one thing before the
juggling lots of projects, and I also have a new family. I have a 1-year-old daughter now, so
congratulations, man. That's huge.
Changes my availability for all my creative endeavors.
Sure. And I'm curious what that's like for you, being a new father.
It's amazing. I mean, it's definitely a game changer. Being an entrepreneur and also being a father is challenging.
How so?
I think it's both great because I have, I get to make my own schedule and I can make time for my family, and which is really important. But it's also harder to keep up with all of my projects and commitments.
Sure. Yeah.
And it is nice not to have a boss, but it's also like I don't have someone else that
you're fully responsible for every aspect of the business, so it becomes this 24/7 thing, and then being a parent's a 24/7 thing, so it's double time.
Exactly.
Yeah,
so it's hard to make everybody happy, but it's amazing. I do love it, and my daughter is like growing, and she's so smart. It's just amazing.
Yeah. I'm not. One thing I notice about humans is when they have children, that seems to be a turning point in their life where their values shift and life changes.
Yeah.
So I don't have kids, but it's always interesting for me to observe and see how people's lives change after they have children.
Yeah, totally.
So here you are, 1 year into it, huh?
Yeah, 1 year in. She turns 1 on February 10th. So
cool, man. Well, savor every year of it, man. Savor every moment of it. Cool.
I am, yeah.
And so I'm really curious to get back to actually head back in the conversation to Thunderbull Productions and kind of your motivations behind the events that you do. I understand as you were growing up, you grew up in a household where your parents were very politically active.
Yeah.
And that had some influence on you. And I'd like to understand how that influenced things that you did later in life and how you perceived those things.
Totally. So yeah, both of my parents were very politically active growing up. They did a sister city project with Port Townsend and Jalapa, Nicaragua in the 80s, where they did these big fundraising events and put together this caravan every year and would drive down to Nicaragua. And
wow, that's a drive.
That was pretty. This is in the 80s, mid to late 80s, when it's kind of war-torn Nicaragua.
Oh, boy.
And so I didn't go on any of those trips, but every year they did a marathon dance as a fundraiser for the Sister City Project, where it was like a 12-hour straight dance. And so I grew up definitely in celebration that was, had a purpose. That's kind of one example. My parents also founded an intentional community called Rosewind Co-Housing. So they were, needless to say, in meetings a lot of the time, which was challenging as a kid to be attending these lengthy meetings that my parents were, involved in, these projects. And
and as a kid, you're like, what's the big deal? Why is it so important? Can we go play?
Exactly. So that was challenging. But I think it instilled within me, a desire and value for being part of the solution, in terms of helping make our planet a viable, fun, healthy place to live.
Our responsibility to grow as a culture, human culture.
Yeah, exactly. So my parents had a much more kind of, they were very concerned about like nuclear disarmament. They're more peace activists than myself. I feel like I am a peace activist in as much as I am working towards, having strong communities that are connected and, have, strong intergenerational relationships.
We just had a blank spot there. So you said I'm working towards peace in the sense of having communities that...
Yeah, I'm working towards peace in the realm of building strong community here at home.
So localized.
Yeah, like really bringing it home and trying to, focus on our own community and how can we work together? How can we have strong, resilient connections and relationships to each other and to this place?
Yeah, I'm curious. Where do you see opportunities for growth there? Like, what's the problem? Like, what are the challenges that we have locally between communities, and what's the opportunity for growth there?
I think there's quite a few opportunities for growth there. I think that a big one is intergenerationally. Like, just there's all these retirees in Port Townsend showing up, and and there's all these youth here that there's just like, I think, opportunities to make connections that will just strengthen our community, give our community purpose, and so that's one area. I mean, I think I'm so in love with the fact that we have a really strong farming community in Jefferson County. I think there's, opportunities for growth there. Just seeing, this emergent farming culture is awesome. I really am all about like just localized culture. So in the form of food and in the form of art and in the form of connection and friendship, having traditions that bring us together. I think that, both in times of celebration, we need each other. We depend on each other to celebrate. And also in times of, hardship and struggle, we need each other. We need each other to take care of each other, to lift each other up. So I see there's a lot of opportunity just to strengthen and grow the quality of friendship and connections that exist within our community.
Excellent. So, yeah, that makes sense. And you had also mentioned something about you took a great interest in the tribes, the local native tribes. And
I think, growing up on the peninsula, I've had a lot of opportunities to adventure and spend time in the mountains and on the coast. And I wasn't really until after high school that I started taking an interest in our local history. And I found myself just kind of reading some books and, feeling a strong desire to strengthen and have a better understanding of what the history of this place is. And in doing that, found myself with interest of growing my own personal connections and relationships with the local tribes. So that, for me, has come in the form of helping out at the annual canoe journeys, which comes through Port Townsend each year.
Yeah, can you tell us a little bit about that? Because I had never heard that. You mentioned it. The canoe annually.
Totally. It's an amazing tradition. It started, I believe, in 1989 with the paddle to Seattle, and it was kind of this bringing back the canoe culture to the local tribes, and they've for all these years, each year they paddle from, maybe over 50 different reservations and tribal communities around the Salish Sea. Each year they travel by canoe to a different host. So one year it's at Nia Bay, one year it's in Puyallup, one year it's in Bella Bella, and each year the canoe families of all these tribes will paddle from, they'll paddle the route. And Port Townsend has ended up on, is often, because we're kind of very central location in the Salish Sea, we almost always are a destination on the way.
That makes sense.
We're on one of the only non-native, non-reservation stops on the journey. So it's a beautiful thing, to help just see the canoes rolling in the morning and welcome all the tribes coming from each of their different locations and give food. And then that night we host a big dinner. And we do this, at this point it's in partnership with the Jamestown and actually each of the S'Klallam tribes, the Jamestown, the Lower Elwha, and the Port Gamble. And so each of them kind of contributes, but, really the Port Townsend volunteer community shows up in an incredible way, and it's just a kind of it's a witnessing and a supporting of this emergence of tribal culture that's kind of, re-emerging after a tremendous amount of trauma and struggle that was, kind of this history. So
I mean, like you said, the land was stolen from them, and it wasn't.
The land was stolen.
It was just hundreds of years ago.
It was very recently. We're not talking about that long ago, and it's kind of a predicament when you think about it like that. What role can we play now as essentially, descendants of the colonizers?
To kind of heal.
It's like, I don't know. There's not any like, oh, you got to do this. I think at this point, for me, at least, I'm just sort of like, I want to personally grow connections and friendships and relationships with tribal members, and that's like been such a gift and a blessing to me. Just the few personal friendships and connections that I have created.
So the question is like, what kind of opportunities can we find to increase connection, friendship, support between all these different communities. It
Yeah.
sounds like you have a very open-minded approach where you have this one objective is just like, let's create connection, and then and maybe we could just find opportunities to do that. And so one ways to do it is to go out to, you said Point Hudson is where the canoes will come in and stop along their way on this
It's out at Fort Worden at this point.
Fort Worden.
I think they used to land at Point Hudson. At one point they did.
And you're talking 5,000 canoes make this journey every year, right?
No, 5. It varies from about 5,000 to 8,000 like total people that engage in the canoe journey. But the canoes, it's not that many canoes. It's only like in Port Townsend on a big year, we might have 50 or 60 canoes. That would be like a big year.
Mm-hmm.
But the canoes, you'll have like maybe 5 to 12 paddler, pullers, they call themselves. And then there's support boats, and then there's people that travel by vehicle to come and like be support staff for all the pullers. I think in the final destination, like you might end up with over 100 canoes, maybe 150 canoes in the final landing each year, but it's not more than that.
Okay.
But still a lot. I mean,
an impressive sight to see all these canoes with all of these natives from all these different tribes, all
totally,
all greeting each other. That's so cool.
Absolutely. And I feel like we have a lot to learn from the native peoples of this area, especially for us that live here, in terms of stewardship, especially in this times where we have not been stewarding this planet very well in terms of our our treatment of the Salish Sea and how we've developed this area and basically cut down all the trees and harvested all the abolone and et cetera. So you have these peoples that lived here for upwards of 14,000 years, maybe longer, and
maybe a lot longer.
And when our ancestors arrived, this was like this magnificent, just abundant place. They speak of 125-pound king salmon in the Elwha River, just like the old growth trees. I mean, just epic nature.
Trees,
and it's still there. And the thing about the earth is that it just keeps on
regenerating.
Creating. It's like magnificently prolific.
Oh yeah, it's unstoppable.
I think I see that, and that brings me hope, and I feel like seeing the indigenous people come back and say, "Hey, we're strong people. We're bringing our culture back. Even so, we were crushed, but we're coming back strong." And the earth is like, "Yeah, we're strong," and so I'm definitely like, "Yeah, let's do it." Like I want to support the health of this planet.
Yeah. And
I see humans as part of, not here to, we're not just here to be stewards, we're here to be participants in a healthy living planet. So to me, celebration is just like...
Enjoy it, yeah.
It's like, it's just like one modality of relating to each other. It's like being, and it's a tool for, cultivating an ecosystem of human relationships.
There we go. It's a great place to meet, is in celebration.
Totally. And it gives membership. It's like, we're part of something together,
Well, I really enjoy hearing your whole perspective on all this stuff. With what I'm seeing is that, looking back at our history and seeing some of the things that happened, that in retrospect we have some regret around, that we can now come kind of full circle and learn lessons from those experiences and reconnect and heal and grow. Acknowledge some mistakes that were made or things that we had to do that we regret, and look for opportunities to learn from those experiences and use it as an opportunity for us to reconnect and appreciate our awareness, this mutual awareness of what happened and where we would all like to go in the future, as humans.
Yeah,
and
I think
I just want to let you know, like, just hearing your enthusiasm about it, your optimism, your focus on it, I'm really enjoying that. I really appreciate it, and I'd
awesome.
like that energy to just spread out and for more of the community to focus on it and experience it. Yeah.
Totally. Well, the nice thing about a lot of these events that I'm involved in is that they're like big, they're like free. Like Cake Picnic is totally free. The Port Townsend Orca Festival is free. The 4th of July, it's like a $5 suggested donation, but it's basically free. And they're supported by business sponsors and some grant funding and personal donations that people make. So they also kind of encourage this gift economy, which is how I see, the natural world working, where it's just like the apple's not charging you for, the apple tree is not charging you to enjoy its fruit. But, if you take care of it, it's going to be providing better fruit.
Uh-huh.
So just like,
we call that a gift economy. It's
a gift economy where if you receive a gift, if someone gives you a gift, yes, it was free to you, but it's different than if, like, you buy something at a grocery store, you get, you pay $2 and you don't expect, like, they're not expecting anything else from you.
Uh-huh.
You got your thing, you gave them $2.
Right.
But with a gift economy, it's not a free economy. That's not what gift economy means. It actually, there are strings attached with gift economy. It's a relationship economy, essentially, or where you have then a relationship with this apple tree or with this, anyway, I can get a little existential about it, but I do think it functions. And there's zero waste in the gift economy.
Zero waste in the gift economy.
I mean, look how a forest works. There's no waste in a forest. Everything has a role to play, and it's all living and dying and feeding what's to come.
Recycling.
So there's everything. That's the kind of economy I would love to live in. And I kind of we sort of dance around that kind of economy in these celebrations to some degree. Where you have people that give a lot and people that, I don't know, it's just kind of this, you have a whole variety of economies happening within this economy.
So in the spirit of the gift economy, I understand you're turning Thunderbull into a non-profit. You're basically turning it over to you're turning this business over to the community.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the early phases of going in that direction, but I'm still in sort of an exploratory phase where since we actually last talked, what I'm actually thinking is that the annual traditions that Thunderbull currently manages, that those basically would be better hosted by a nonprofit. So what I'm going to do is in collaboration with a lot of my kind of event partners and artist partners that I've done a lot of work with over the years, I'm planning to create a new nonprofit that is not by the name of Thunderbull, but essentially that this new nonprofit will inherit the annual traditions that Thunderbull has helped to create over these years, and that Thunderbull would continue on as its own business entity.
Mm-hmm.
But the Cake Picnic, the 4th of July, the All-County Picnic, other events that are also have been created in partnership, they essentially would all fall under this kind of new organization, which I'm currently calling the Party Party, which is
the Party Party.
Probably not. That's just the working title for now.
That's cute.
But essentially, the completely altruistic side of Thunderbull, which has this mission of building community through celebration and has created these traditions that are largely community-owned but managed by Thunderbull. I'm essentially giving these traditions over to this new organization, and I'll be offering my myself as an executive director, at least initially, until this thing is really off the ground.
Okay, some volunteer.
Yeah, I mean, I will be, my time will need to be paid, essentially, like most nonprofits would have an executive director. But, the events essentially would then be able to leverage more support as a nonprofit than I'm able to leverage as a business entity.
Yeah.
So, like, currently I can't really get grant funds for a lot of these events. I can't, I have this big volunteer team as Thunderbull, but it just makes them more clearly community owned.
Yeah, right.
And also have the benefit of having a board of directors and having more community involvement. So
yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah. Kind of what I'm looking at.
To build community, then it really does make sense to turn it into a nonprofit and then have the community participate in more so in like the planning and execution of all these.
Exactly, and we've created over the years like pretty solid structures for each of these events. So there's a solid template on how to make the cake picnic happen, and it's not that much work. We're not like reinventing the wheel every year. It's just what it depends on is the energy and the spirit and the enthusiasm and creativity of a great community. That's what's needed every year. So
that's what it's all about.
Yeah, but the structure, getting the permit, making sure the details are organized and taken care of, that's kind of the job of the production manager, which to me needs to be a paid position.
Sure.
For the most part, not in all cases. I think a certain amount is fine to have that be volunteer, but these events, So anyway, that's kind of taking shape. I'm having a retreat February 1st and 2nd, and we'll be bringing together my team and getting
February 1st and 2nd, 2019. You're having a retreat.
Yeah, that's a big.
What's that all about?
Big weekend. So that's basically it's the first ever kind of full-on Thunderbull retreat, bringing together a number of my kind of counsel and people that have offered me good counsel over the years, as well as my core team of collaborators, people that I've worked with for many years, many of whom were involved in starting Boomfest and even members of NANDA.
Is this by invite only, or is it open to the public?
Yeah. This is just a small. There's going to be like 12 of us. So
that sounds neat. I hope that's really productive and helpful for you guys. And
I sure hope so too. Yeah, I think it will be.
So let's see. Is there anything else to cover on the Thunderbull side of things? I guess now that our listeners are aware that Thunderbull is becoming a nonprofit and the purpose is to promote community through celebration, we invite the community to contact you through thunderbullproductions.com and see how they can get involved in planning these events and participating in them.
Totally, yeah. This is sort of a transition year where all the events are still going to be run under Thunderbull, but starting next year, I think it's actually going to have a new name. Thunderbull will continue on as my personal event production company, but this new organization is what's going to be managing, all these community traditions.
Okay.
And so, like I said, the working title for that is the Party Party.
The Party Party. Okay, so for now, people can always reach out to you through Thunderbull, and then they'll get forwarded on to the Party Party.
Yeah, exactly. Yep, okay. We'll see. Yes.
So you said something so neat on our first call about, I think it was actually about Strait Up Magazine.
Yeah.
It was a value in particular that struck me. You were saying a community that knows its own stories.
Yeah. Yeah, that's part of the intention with Strait Up Magazine is to provide a platform for, interviewing people and telling people's stories and, telling stories about important projects that the community is involved in, like housing projects and stewardship projects and other types of projects. But I think, I guess that statement, community that knows its own stories, it's more of a statement around cultural, almost like
awareness.
a cultural awareness, but also competency in terms of like, and also feedback systems. It's like, you got to be, if you want to know the story of this place, like, you got to talk to the guy that grew up here that's 100 years old. Like, did you hear his story?
Right.
If you didn't hear his story, then you're missing out on a lot of the story.
Yeah.
You know, there's the history, and there's the now, and there's the future, and all these stories, they're connected. And in order to kind of envision and work towards a solid,
a strong community,
resilient future, we need to know the stories of our community. I don't know. I think,
and the lessons that are there in the stories,
yeah,
and maybe the importance of certain relationships that exist in the community.
Totally.
Of various individuals and groups, and
yeah. I mean, it's sort of a question
for that if we know the stories.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. Like there exists this network of relationships between individuals and organizations that's been cultivated for many years and actually generations now.
That's the essence of our community right there, the relationships.
It's sort of the essence of our community, and it's like this invisible space that exists between us. I call it cultural ecology.
Cultural ecology. Neat.
And essentially, to be able to tap into that cultural ecology, but it's like a thriving ecosystem. It's complex. And you enter in one part of the ecology and one circles of communities, and you get kind of absorbed in that until you realize there's this whole other part of the ecosystem out there of friendships and connections and communities that exist. So there's a lot going on, and I think the more diverse and the more kind of collaborative and connected these circles are, the more resilient and, enjoying life we'll be able to.
Yeah. The more we're going to be able to get out of life, the more we're going to be able to enjoy life and have fulfillment right here at home.
Yeah,
if we have
totally.
The resources of the relationships around us, and we have positive relationships around us.
Yeah.
So right on that note, man, hearing your value of community there, and the community is like awareness, specifically awareness. And storytelling, and the history of what's gone on around here and who was involved and what we learned from those things. I have a request for you and for the community that I'd like some of these stories to be shared right here on the podcast in future episodes. So if you or anyone out there can think of names of people who live in the West Puget region who might like to share these stories about the history of our area, and please send them our way. Send them over to westpugetcommunityconnection.com and have them contact me, because these are just the kind of stories I want to get on this podcast so people can hear these stories and be aware and have a sense of connection and awareness.
Yeah.
Build relationships and stuff.
Totally. I don't know how much time we have left, but I could tell one brief story that kind of connects back to the work that I'm doing. So I was born uptown Port Townsend in a house that was once known. It was once a part of a tract of land called Coon Ranch. When I was 9 or 10 years old, my family moved over to 35th Street in San Juan Valley, 35th and Coon. And years later, I stumbled into writings about this guy, Joseph Coon. Among other things, and this is after we had launched the first cake picnic, I learned that Joe Coon had been the producer of, with a few of his friends, for 30 years. He produced an annual clam bake in Port Townsend. where they would invite all the regional, like, neighboring tribes and all the community members, and it was mandatory attendance for Port Townsend residents.
Oh, wow. You have to be at the clam bake.
You had to be at the clam bake.
Or you get in trouble.
If you look at the old invitations, and he literally said, if you don't show up, we'll burn your barn down.
Oh,
and it was in jest, but it was, nonetheless, you could see the humor in their statements, but
that's
it's
funny.
Essentially.
But he's saying, hey, this is important, you guys better be here. He's really
this is important. This is our community. And after 30 years, he wrote a letter to the community, and it's in the Jefferson County Historical Society records. Mm-hmm. He wrote a letter to the people of Port Townsend that basically said, the spirit is no longer strong within us.
Oh.
Someday it will emerge again.
Oh.
And I feel like, wow, maybe some of these community traditions that, like, are really attempting to honor and strengthen and engage the community, like, the time has come again. Like, we need to rise to the occasion to, bring back.
To reunite, bring
and bring the spirit back. Not that there hasn't been spirit all these years. I think there has. It's just been in different forms. But anyway, I just thought it was interesting, like, for me to be a part of that kind of torch-bearing for these celebrations, to have had this kind of connection with Joe Kuhn. Like, maybe there was some spirit at work that, helped instill this particular kind of...
Yeah, maybe the party ought to throw a clam bake one of these days.
Yeah,
make out a funny flyer with, like, a burning barn on it or something.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Honestly, I think we've talked about something like that, but that would be really fun. I think bringing the clam bake back would be fun,
That would be something. That would be neat. Yeah, so there you go. So and Coon Street is around the corner over here by North Beach. And so now I know, now I know the history of these names, Joe Kuhn, and a little bit of just a little story about Joe Kuhn right there.
Totally, yeah. Kuhn was quite a character.
So the untold stories, man. There's a lot of them. There's just a lot of stories to be told.
Yeah, yeah. We sort of lost.
Huh?
Yeah, we've kind of lost our storytelling platforms because the stories people are listening to for the most part right now are like Netflix,
right?
Social media. We tell stories on Facebook and stuff, but it's not the same as, like, sitting around a fire and listening to our elders telling stories of what it was like,
here.
And
of
exactly.
Local things that happened here. Yeah.
Totally.
So we've got Strait Up Magazine. Strait Up Magazine can fill us in on a lot of those stories. And we've got the podcast, the West Puget podcast. So this is neat. That right now we're exposing these values and we're sharing it with the community and we're asking for their support. Please contact Strait Up Magazine with your stories. Please contact the West Puget Community Connection podcast with your stories. Let's make sure these things are documented and shared with the community. And it's important. It's important. It's more important than we probably even realize.
Yeah, I agree.
Wonderful. All right. Well, is there anything else that you'd like, any other bases that you'd like to touch on here on the call that you think we may have left out that you feel like you want to share?
I think we did a pretty good job covering it. I'm really appreciative of your invitation to participate in the podcast, and I'll definitely spread the word about it. And people out there, stay tuned for the Strait Up Magazine Spring Summer Edition coming out mid-April.
Mid-April, okay.
Yeah, that'll be the launch, and then my next big event is the Cake Picnic Roadie Fest.
Yes.
Mid-May.
On the day of Roadie Fest, we can find out.
Yeah, it's that Saturday of Roadie Fest.
Okay. Okay, so these are your requests to the community. Come join us for some cake and dancing. Pick up a copy of Strait Up Magazine and send over some names of some people who can tell us some great stories for our writers to interview. Any other requests for the community?
The only other thought that comes up to me, I wanted to mention, a good friend of mine is putting on the first annual Global Earth Repair Conference.
Oh.
And that's going to be out at Fort Worden on May 3rd through 5th. But it's a big deal. I'm so excited and inspired by this guy, Skeeter, who's a longtime event producer and resident of Havelock. And he's bringing together people from all over the world. There's people flying in from Africa, from Europe, from Central America, folks that have been working in the field of earth repair in terms of agroforestry, permaculture, bioremediation, et cetera, and bringing together a really amazing group of folks to focus on kind of the work at hand and how to improve collaboration and kind of help the earth repair itself, you know. So anyway, I'm really excited for Skeeter, and I'm going to be helping him out a little bit.
Really interesting stuff.
Really,
just feeds your soul, the thought of going back and repairing the damage, you know, fixing what we broke. It's
it's not broken. We just have to give it a chance to heal itself.
Yeah. And
so
Skeeter wants to repair the earth, and that's coming up soon. Where can people get a little more information on that, and so they can visit?
I think if you just search up Global Earth Repair Conference online, you'll find it.
Port Townsend.
And there's a bunch of posters and stuff hung all over Jefferson County. More information. I know there's a website, but I'm not sure what it is.
That should be Googleable. Googleable. I've never used that term. I just made up a term. Googleable. That's Googleable.
Nice.
Googleable. All right. Sounds good, man. Danny, thank you so much for coming onto the podcast and sharing with us what's in your heart, what's on your mind, and the opportunities that you see for the community to grow and build resilience and connect. And thanks for making this memory with me.
Yeah. Awesome. I appreciate it. And, I'll be looking out for the podcast. Can't wait to hear it.
You got it, my man. This will be on the
All right, man.
Be sure to subscribe. Yeah, be sure to subscribe by email so you'll be notified of all new episodes and you can hear the voices of other locals telling their stories.
Awesome. All right. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Danny. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
You too. Ciao.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the West Puget Community Connection podcast. Be sure to catch the next episode. Sign up for our email list at westpugetcommunityconnection.com, and you'll be notified when new episodes are published. And if you're interested in advertising or being featured on the show, you can contact us through our website as well, westpugetcommunityconnection.com. The West Puget Community Connection podcast is brought to you in part by mywebdesignservices.com. Quick, easy, affordable websites that look amazing across all devices. For a quote or to get started today, visit mywebdesignservices.com. The West Puget Community Connection podcast. This is where we learn about the people of our community. We learn what they do, and more importantly, why they do it. Subscribe by email at westpugetcommunityconnection.com. We look forward to learning more about you.